Hi, I'm Dennis Lyons, editor of the Daily Item, and we're here with another one of our conversations with candidates for office in the November 6th election. Today, our guest is Kurt Masser, who is running for re-election in the 107th House District, and he's running against Sarah Donnelly, who we'll have here next week. So, Kurt, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's get started right away with one that we've pretty much started everyone who's running in the state house election, and that's the child abuse statute of limitations situation. Obviously, the House voted heavily in favor of it. You did vote for it as well. There seems to be some great consternation about the constitutionality of establishing the window for civil lawsuits that have gone past the statute of limitations. Talk to me about your thoughts about that bill and whether you think it's, you voted for it, so I assume you thought it was constitutional.
Well, I think the attorneys in the House felt that it would pass constitutional muster. Yeah, I voted for it. I will stand with the victims on this. So hopefully we can get to some resolution on it. We did pass it overwhelmingly, and so I think they're working towards a resolution, but obviously our House attorneys thought it was constitutional, and at least going to let the courts say if it wasn't. But you know, the bill that was in front of us, I thought was a good bill, and would give the victims their chance to be compensated.
Yeah, actually, Bill Bowman, our managing editor, and I had a long conversation with Senator Gardner yesterday, and he's of the concern of the slippery slope thing on this, that this would open up potential windows for lawsuits on virtually everything. He even suggested suing the Daily Item for something from the 1950s. You know.
Well, I would hope not. I mean, I think it's a very narrow approach, so I would hope that that's not the case. But we'll see where we can get resolution. I mean, oftentimes we send it to the Senate and they'll make changes to it to where they feel comfortable. So I think this is something that will be brought back up very early next session.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You also voted in favor of the change in the gun rules for people who are subject to protection from abuse orders. Talk to me a little bit about that and your thinking on why that was a good idea.
Well, I think, you know, anytime, again, I look at the victims and make sure that we are addressing the needs out there and keeping them safe. This is something a bill that was worked on quite a long time to get buy-in from the NRA, who was neutral on it at that point, which is certainly around here you want the NRA plays a role in it. So it was a bill that was worked through all the parties, and the NRA weighed in on it, just to protect those victims of domestic violence.
Okay. There's now we ran a story on this just a few days ago, a possibility of reducing the penalties for possession of small amounts of marijuana.
Yeah.
There is a House bill that's already passed on that as well. Is that right?
There is, yeah. And I think, you know, the small amounts of marijuana are tying up our court systems, are tying up the jails for, small possession of marijuana. And we did pass that. I voted for it. Also did some things where, people were losing their licenses and couldn't go to work. So we made some changes there so they can keep their license and can continue to go to work, if they have a small amount of marijuana.
Getting back to the slippery slope school of thought, there are some who argue that this is a path on the way to recreational legalization.
I don't see it as that at all. I think we're still quite a ways away from recreational marijuana. I think if you would poll it, it certainly wouldn't poll that people would be in favor of it. In fact, I'm planning on doing a poll just to see where the electorate is at. While I may feel one way, I'm there to voice and to vote for the concerns of the citizens of the 107th district. And I don't think right now the people of the 107th are ready to vote for a legalization of recreational marijuana.
But you were in favor of the medical marijuana?
I was, yes. When I first got there, I was a little bit iffy on that. But after talking to literally hundreds of families who have been affected by different things, and talking to parents who had children who are having thousands of seizures a day and then cutting it back to 10, and the tears in their eyes that they needed this help. People with Parkinson's, people with PTSD, the difference that this has made. You're going to be hard pressed to vote no on that bill. So I did vote in favor of that bill.
Okay. Cool.
You talk about representing the people of the 107th. Where do you stand on the potential of reduction of the House and the Senate themselves in terms of getting a greater number of people you would represent in your district?
I was for it. I voted for it. I'll continue to vote for it. I think it's a good move. I think there is no magic number, but I think certainly with today's technology, we're able to reach out to the people a lot easier, to represent more people. I have voted for it. We unfortunately couldn't get it done this year because the Democratic leader put an amendment on in the Rules Committee, so that effectively killed that bill. We did try another maneuver to try to get back to the original printer's number, and that failed in the House. But all my votes have been for reducing the size of the legislature.
What's the appetite among your fellow legislators for? Because essentially you're talking about getting rid of 50 themselves. So I mean, I don't know if many jobs where people would vote to eliminate 50 of their own kind.
I agree, but I think there's enough people there that are of like mind, like myself. I mean, if I lose, it's if this costs me my seat, I was only here for X amount of time to represent the people anyway. I wasn't going to be a career politician, certainly. Sometimes I wonder why I'm not back at my business, but I feel like I'm doing good things for the region. But yeah, absolutely, you could be eliminating your own job, but that's all right. I mean, we're supposed to be citizen legislators and serve an X amount of time and go back to your main job. I mean, back in the days, it was a lot of farmers who would go to the legislature or it certainly was part-time. That changed in the 60s, but I have no problem with that. The only concern I have is how they would redraw the maps and what would that look like. But I don't think going down by 50 is going to be that drastic of a change.
Whenever we talk to candidates for state office, it's invariably at the top of the list of concerns is property taxes. I guess my first question is what are you hearing out there? And there's some move to eliminate them. Scott Wagner is in favor of eliminating them for school funding purposes. What are you hearing, and where do you stand?
School property taxes for sure are the most regressive taxes there are. I mean, any tax that can put a senior out of their home isn't a good tax. So I voted for House Bill 76 in the past. That would have raised the personal income tax, and it would have raised the sales tax a little bit, and it would also have expanded what was taxed with the sales tax. I thought that was a good bill. Going forward, the devil's always in the details, and it's about what will that new bill that would eliminate the school taxes look like, and what would it mean for our region. I still have concerns. You always have concerns because essentially Harrisburg will become one giant school board, and we'll decide, the money will be going to Harrisburg, but how much money is coming back to each of the districts. So there is concerns there that we have some safeguards in place that our local districts are protected. But I just feel that property tax is such a regressive tax.
Yeah, we had Fred Keller in here the other day, and he was talking about he had two things that he said about it. One was that until everybody's paying the the 1.8 earned income tax, that should be the first thing that happens, and secondly that just changing who pays what tax isn't really reform.
Yeah, and Fred and I disagree on this. But I'm just worried about people losing their homes when they're on a fixed income.
Kurt?
Kurt, one of the issues in your district is in Shamokin with respect to the AOAA and opening that up to vehicular access into the downtown. Where do you stand on that? And would that take any move by the legislature to change traffic laws to kind of make that a more permanent thing?
As far as I've been told, that you can do it now with the existing laws. I think the city would have to pass an ordinance, and it would probably have to be okayed by PennDOT. But the mayor has told me that it is okayed. This isn't, we're not reinventing the wheel with this. I mean, I think Renova, you can go into the towns with your ATVs. Certainly a lot of the northern towns, you can go right into the towns with your snowmobiles. And certainly in West Virginia, the Hatfield-McCoy trail system, you can go into all the towns along those trail systems, and that is their lifeblood. I think for the city of Shamokin, this could be a game changer. Right now we have, we might have 700 people up on that mountain, and very few of them are making their way into town because they're coming in the back way off of Interstate 81, and they're coming up over the mountain, and they're not even hitting the city of Shamokin. So anything that we can do to help the businesses in Shamokin and in turn revitalize downtown is going to be big.
And something like that could also benefit other towns, like Treverton being one of them.
Absolutely. And Treverton has done it the last number of years, I think 3 or 4 years. Treverton has allowed it on a certain day, and they were apprehensive there too, but have seen zero problems during that day that they do it every year. The drivers ride down through Treverton. They go to the Zerby Rod and Gun Club for a chicken barbecue, and have seen zero problems. The only problems you're going to see, I think, are oftentimes going to be locals that are going to try to, force their way into it and act up. But you're seeing that now on the city streets. Oftentimes, I've talked to people from the Fifth Ward who see the ATVs flying out through there, no helmet, no safety guards on them, and they're seeing it out in the west end of Cole Township also. So it's the people who are coming in from out of state or out of area. They don't want to lose this, so they're not going to be doing crazy things to lose that privilege that they're getting. And also, I think you're going to see a big police presence that day to make sure that we don't have problems.
You made a good point. A lot of the people who go there are from out of the area, out of state. Is tourism kind of the big potential for economic growth in the southeastern part of the county?
Well, I think it's certainly one of them that we have right at our fingertips. We have it. The AOA has blown past every forecast that people have put out there, expectations. They've just killed any expectations. They've far surpassed them. So yeah, I think it's not the only one, but it certainly it's the easiest one right at our fingertips that we should embrace and capitalize on.
One of the things that comes up every election, no matter who's running for what, is the minimum wage. Talk to us a little bit about your stand on whether, it's been what it is for many, many years. It's tied to the federal minimum wage at $7.25. What do you think should happen? Should there be any increase, large, small, gradual? What do you think?
I'm open to looking at it, but quite frankly, I don't know who's paying minimum wage anymore. Even when you go into the convenience stores, they're starting out at $12 an hour just to hire people. Right now, being a small business owner, it's not easy finding people to work because the unemployment rates are have come down so much. So to find quality employees, you have to pay much more than the minimum wage. So I'm open to looking at it, but I think there has to be some difference. If you raise it, can you differentiate between teenagers who are still in school or college-age kids who are still in school and older folks? And maybe I certainly want to look at that too. But I am open to it, and I know there's been talk in Harrisburg. But right now, I just don't know who is even paying the minimum wage. I think it's just something on paper, and there's very few people that are when I look around. I've never seen so many billboards, people looking for work in our region. Everywhere you go, you see billboards that people are just desperate for employees. So that's a good sign that people are working and the industries are thriving.
That is a good sign. And the economy, obviously, is pretty robust these days. Unemployment is down. But a lot of these jobs, you drive up and down the main street of almost any town around here, and you'll see a lot of help wanted signs. But those aren't necessarily, family sustainable jobs.
Well, these aren't the ones that I'm talking about.
Right.
The billboards that I see out are certainly not. The billboards that I see are family-sustaining jobs. A number of them that I know pay very well. So maybe on the storefronts where you see the signs, they might not be family-sustaining wages. But I'm saying I've seen more billboards than I have ever seen in the time that I've been in business.
Okay. Bill?
Tick back into education a little bit. Report last week that the state system of higher education enrollment's down, I think 4% across the board. It's down about 40% at Cheney. What's the legislature's role in sort of maintaining that, monitoring it, sort of reviewing the viability of it long term? If that means keeping everything open, if that means creating some branch campuses of things like that, just your thoughts on the state system as a whole and where it's going?
Well, certainly it's a concern that the enrollment's going the way that it is going. Cheney's a whole different ballgame. I mean, Cheney has been really suffering for a number of years, and there's been talk about what we can do. I think the biggest need for education in the region is the trades, and our vocational technical schools should be really booming because of the need for tradesmen and good-paying jobs coming right out of high school potentially. I mean, I know Sun Votech is sending a lot of kids who are making really good money right out of high school with no college debt. So there has been talk about can we change some of these schools and that we're not all offering the same courses. Can we change some of the northern tier schools to be more reflective of what the needs are in that region and also boost attendance and enrollment by doing something like that? There has been talks, and I think the talks will continue, especially because of the reports that just came out.
At least around here, it seems there's a real appetite to grow the community college system. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think everybody wants to have education that's affordable, and the community colleges certainly provide that. And affordable and close to home, which also plays into the affordability because oftentimes you're commuting to these community colleges. So I know Lackawanna College coming into Sunbury was a big deal, and us having Luzerne County Community College in Shamokin and Coltmont is a big deal for that region. It gives affordable options for families, and I can hope that they continue to thrive and even expand.
How is that going up there? Because there's a possibility they're going to open a campus maybe in Watsontown.
I heard that, yeah. So I'm just hoping that it doesn't affect the Shamokin campus, but they assured me it will not.
Yeah.
I think they're merging the Coltmont Center into the Shamokin campus. The nursing program was always up in Coltmont. I think they're going to be bringing that down into Shamokin. And there's another great example of the nursing classes that come out of that community college that are going to work, that are in high need, high demand jobs. And if anything, we need to expand that access there.
It's obviously a huge continuing issue everywhere in our Susquehanna Valley and statewide and nationwide is the opioid and heroin epidemic. There's been some progress made. Are there things on the table that you'd like to see the legislature move forward to help answer some of the problems in that issue? Sure.
I mean, but we've done a number of things. I mean, we've passed an act this year which addressed the shortage of beds for treatment. I think it was the session before this that we did a prescription drug monitoring program. We made education, continuing education, opioid addiction had to be part of that. So we've done a number of bills, and I could probably go on, but still more needs to be done. I don't think we're going to see where you have seen yet the effects of the prescription drug monitoring program fully yet. I think a number of things have taken place. Geisinger, for example, I think have dropped their prescriptions for opioid painkillers in half or more than half, which is good, which is, we live in a society oftentimes where we want instant gratification and have zero pain. Well, oftentimes when you have a surgery, pain should be a part of that, and pain is part of the recovery process. Well, we're in a society where we want zero, and that plays into this opioid epidemic because not all of these are going. I think very few of them are going out saying, "Boy, I want to be an addict." Oftentimes they're getting addicted because they're on pain medicine and they get addicted to the pain medicine because of a surgery or an injury. So I think we're making great strides, but we're always looking at what can we do more.
We have I guess a pilot program coming here. I'm not sure exactly the timing of it, but the transportation possibility of having a route up and down 1115. I think there's some issues. I mean, talk to people at Geisinger, you talk to people at the United Way, and they always tell you that transportation comes up as one of the key issues. Are there ways to remedy people's transportation issues around here that we need to explore?
Well, I don't know what the answer to that is, because that's been puzzling me since my days as county commissioner, that we do have a transportation shortage, we do have transportation needs, but without significant funding, how do you address that need? I know LATS has expanded to some degree in the anthracite region, and certainly have Rapid Transit doing their part for the the roles that they fill with aging population and special needs population. But more needs to be done, and I know the United Way has done some studies, and hopefully we can address it in the future. But it's always going to come down to money.
Coming from the coal region over there, to continue on the transportation theme, that's this new fixed route that they're talking about does not attach over there. So in Harrisburg, where you're fighting for funding for transportation from Shamokin to this new connector, how receptive are legislators from Philadelphia or Pittsburgh to getting money to the Susquehanna Valley, as opposed, with a small population, as opposed to getting it into a Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, where there's certainly more people that would benefit from it? I mean, we're fortunate here. We've got $700 million coming for the Thruway now, but we can't get a bus from here to there.
Yeah. I think, people, if anybody would understand it, is the people from Philadelphia, because they have such massive transportation needs. Oftentimes the rural people will fight them because of all the money that's going into transportation for mass transit in the metropolitan areas. But guess what those roads would be like if those 1 million drivers, 1 million passengers a day are on the Schuylkill Expressway or the Blue Route. It would be a lot worse than it is today, and it's hard to believe that anything could be worse. I think they would get it. Certainly, they made me understand their needs in Philadelphia, and it's just my job to make them understand the needs in rural Pennsylvania as they made me see their needs in the urban areas.
We're closing in. I haven't seen the latest math on this, but we're closing in on the situation with our pension situation, that we may soon be paying more people not to teach in our schools than we are to actually teach our kids. Now, there's been some progress a couple of years ago, I guess it was, on the people who are just coming in to that. But anything on the table that we should know about, or that may come forward in 19 to further address the pension situation?
Well, I think it would depend on the governor's election. We passed a more robust pension fix that would have been more aggressive, but it was vetoed by the governor. I think we got the best product that we could, that we had agreement with the administration. But I think you're always going to see people coming back to this and saying we need to do more. We are right now at a point where we're pretty much leveling off now on that debt. It was always climbing at very unsustainable rates. We're at a point now where it's starting to even off. So thank goodness for that, because so much money we put into education has gone right to pensions. So hopefully we can see more dollars going into the classrooms itself. But it's a tough issue to, we tried to be more aggressive, and we were just turned down on that. But I think you'll always see it coming back, people trying to address it even more.
One of the things that didn't make it through this session was any kind of legislation reacting to the issues of sexual harassment, the Me Too movement, et cetera. But there have been cases in the state of Pennsylvania where taxpayer dollars have been used to pay settlements. Is there any appetite for getting something on that done in the coming session?
Certainly in our leadership meetings, that's been discussed a number of times. So I think, yes, I think they're being very deliberative, though, in this process to make sure that we get it right when we do it. But there are two members of leadership who have been really pursuing this, and who are, I think, really dialing down and making sure they get their I's dotted and T's crossed, and when we do it right when we do it. But I would expect to see something very early on in the next session.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Kurt, do you have any specific legislative initiatives should you be reelected?
Well, I mean, blight's been a big issue for me throughout my tenure down there, and I'm really looking at some things that we can do to fix the tax sale process in Pennsylvania. Oftentimes people are buying these properties sight unseen, and once they see them, they realize they can't make any money off of this, so they let it go back for taxes, and they're not held responsible. We fixed one of those things with the Sprock decision. We fixed that with legislation this year where they are held responsible until there is a new owner, but it still doesn't stop that merry-go-round of if you're a neighbor and the property next to you is being left go. It's just a brutal thing. So why would you invest in your property when you're never going to see a return? We've gotten significant dollars to bring to address the blight situation, but there's things that need to be done legislatively to fix that tax sale process. That's certainly one of them. One of the initiatives that I'm going to be doing next year.
You said earlier that you didn't ever plan to become a lifelong politician. So do you have a sense of term limit? Do you think there's a number of terms that people ought to serve?
Well, I certainly think I'd certainly look at it. I think you can go too short though, where it takes you it takes you a couple years down there to really figure your way around and know how to get things done. I'm still learning after 8 years, how to get things done because the state government is so big, and sometimes you run into a problem. That's the first time that you've run into it, and you still have to figure your way around it. So if you go too short of term limits, it's the staff that really becomes the powerful ones because you have to lean on that staff until you really have a feel for your way around Harrisburg. But I certainly would look at term limits depending on what the bill would be. But yeah, I mean, I didn't even plan to get into politics until I got my real estate tax bill one year, and I was mad as heck, and I decided I can do a couple things, just moan and complain about it, go to meetings and complain about it, or run and try to make a difference, and I chose the latter. Sometimes I think I'm crazy for that, but that's what I chose.
And since you got that bill and you won an election, what have you been able to do to address that issue?
The property tax,
Yeah.
we lowered them in Northumberland County while I was commissioner.
Okay.
So I think I'm mission accomplished on that end while I was commissioner. But now at the state, it's a whole different ballgame.
Sure.
We've been now we're holding the line on spending. We had a governor who proposed over $12 billion in tax increases the first year he was there, and we've held the line on spending. We've held the line on taxes, no tax increases, and kept the increases in budgets below the rate of inflation, and contributed to the rainy day fund for the first time in a long time. Certainly that's part due because the economy is doing so well, but I think also a big part of it is we've held the line on spending, we've held the line on taxes.
It's one last question from me, and that is sports gambling. We certainly, actually, I'm a little surprised it hasn't already gone into full-blown action. I know they've approved some licenses for about 3 casinos so far. Were you in favor of that, and do you see that as a positive for the state?
I was, only because I know it's going on already. I mean, there's people who are gambling now. So to have it regulated and have people know that they're doing it legitimately and being protected as a consumer is a good thing. So I'm hopeful that the Gaming Control Board can get this up and running. I was hoping that it would be done quicker than this. I was actually expecting it before the start of football season. But I think there's other ways that this could be even looked at. Can we do it through the lottery where the seniors would benefit by doing it through the lottery instead of having the casinos get even richer? Can't we do something that way? So that's something I'm going to be looking at also to help the lottery, because we have the aging population. We're going to have real needs in the future as that population grows.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just one about telemedicine and where that stands in the legislature moving forward in the next session.
We were so hopeful that telemedicine would have gotten done at the end of session, but there was a pro-life amendment there that was put on at the end, and but they just didn't run it because it was going to be too controversial for the end of session. While I am pro-life and I certainly believe in that cause, I was disappointed that that amendment couldn't be pulled and just ran as a separate bill the next session, because telemedicine, especially for our area, is so key. That in the rural areas that we can have doctors seeing more patients and people having better access to health care through telemedicine. That certainly is going to be one of the first bills that are going to be rolled in the next session.
All right, Kurt. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to spend a few minutes with us, and we'll talk again.
Thank you.
Thank you.